going on, YouTube fans and Call of Duty fans alike? That's not my usual intro, but we're going to roll with it. We've got ourselves the Day 2 recap of everything going on with the CWL Pro League for Division B, week number 9. However you want to classify it, we're ready to go. We're ready to break it down. I will give you a small caveat. I will not be doing my traditional betting screen ending because, again, I don't know what's going on with Bovada, but I cannot, they're not posting all the lines. They're only posting a couple of the games, none of the spreads, and for some reason, Bet365 will not load. It just gives me a gray screen. So if anyone's got any solutions for that, let me know, and I'll try to get some videos up with that, with the betting screen at the very end for Wednesday going into Thursday. That's the only other day we have to do. So if you know any fixes for that, please let me know. Otherwise, Bovada's not posting lines, so I don't really know what to tell you guys, but I will still give you predictions, and you can give yourselves your best guesses as far as how you would want to bet. I couldn't tell you lines because there's nothing posted at the moment. So let's go ahead and just dig into what happened today, Tuesday, May 28th. 4 games on the line, starting with Denial and 100 Thieves, Elevate versus Splyce, Team Envy going up against the Heretics, and then we'd finish the day with eUnited and Enigma 6. Now, this was a very interesting day. I had predicted, along with a lot of people with COD Gamepedia and things like that, this was going to be a pretty easy to predict day. And the only game that a lot of people had some questions on was Heretics versus Envy. Everything else should have been pretty straightforward. Denial, yes, you beat Envy, but is there really a chance you're going to beat 100 Thieves? Probably not. Splyce 3-0 to Enigma 6, who looked pretty good in the loss, so against Elevate, should not have a problem. Team Envy, Team Heretics, you can say what you want. Envy lost to Denial, so there's that, and Heretics, they were coming in strong, coming after a good performance at London, and then eUnited and Enigma 6, there shouldn't be many questions as far as how that one went. So let's go ahead and start things off. Denial versus 100 Thieves. This one was going just about as expected. In fact, I actually missed the first hard point because I just didn't really care to watch it in live time because I knew it was going to be a stomp. Would start off with a 250 to 140 for the victory of 100 Thieves. Then we'd go to Search and Destroy, a little bit back and forth, and this is where I kind of thought there might be some issues for 100 Thieves. They've not been the greatest Search and Destroy team. They are incredible at respawn, but their Search and Destroy has been average. Actually, lately it's been a little bit less than average. They're only 3 for 5 in Search and Destroy after London, which is not what you want to hear, but they were able to actually take it at a 6-4 score. We would then go to the Control that was played over on Arsenal, a map that 100 Thieves is typically pretty good at, and mostly because their AR slaying power is strong. They're 6-2 going into today on Arsenal Control, which you would think would be very favorable for them, where Denial has only been a total of 1-4. Well, Denial would actually smack around 100 Thieves a little bit. A lot of close rounds back and forth, but Denial would actually take the Control. But then past that, it was all 100 Thieves. 250 to 163 was the last hard point. 3-1, that was what we predicted. That was what it was. We said that they might lose the Search, but they ended up losing the Control. Regardless, still the same prediction that we thought. Fast forward, Elevate versus Splyce. Now, this is one that I told you guys to bet on the spread line for Splyce because I didn't see any way that Elevate would be able to hang with Splyce after how they looked versus Enigma 6. Here's the freaking thing about Division B. It is nearly impossible to predict because you have teams like Envy and Splyce that are just so inconsistent and you never know which team you're going to get. Beyond that, you also have good up-and-comers in Denial, Enigma 6, and Elevate. So when it comes down to these lower teams in the division playing up against teams that we anticipate being good, you never know what you're going to get. This one would start off in favor of Splyce, but it was close back and forth on the first hard point that was played on Arsenal. 250 to 245 for Splyce. The Search and Destroy, not a convincing win either, but Splyce was still going to take this one a 6-3. We'd then go to the Control, and Elevate, who'd been sticking around for the first 2 maps, would start to rev their engines a little bit harder and would start to pull ahead. They were able to handle Splyce no problem really whatsoever on the Control of frequency. A 3-1 there, a couple of dominating rounds, also as Elevate were on their way to potentially setting up a reverse sweep. It would get uglier from there. The second hard point, 250 to 77. Let that sink in for a hot second. 77 points against this Elevate team that had not been getting the greatest of practice. Profizi, Whalers, Skies, Brezzy, and Ruiz were all playing super well. Big ups to Whalers and Brezzy, who were hanging in very hot. Skies has looked very good with the Maddox lately, and even Profizi was taking the better of Splyce up front with the SMG, so we would finish things off on Search and Destroy Map 5 Payload. Splyce would fall. After going up 4-0, Elevate would win 6 rounds straight. That's unexcusable for a team like Splyce that we had come to know and learn and expect to be a top 4 finisher at every event. All of the conversation about, well, maybe London was a fluke for them finishing top 12, maybe not. Maybe this team will be looking to make some changes because, goodness, you cannot lose to Elevate like that. You cannot get reverse swept against a team that you need to be beating. Too many question marks for me when it comes down to Splyce. After, again, they looked good playing up against Enigma 6. There's really no reason they should have found any much issue against Elevate, but that would ruin my parlay bets for the day, and obviously the spread bet. Apologies if you bet there, but how could you possibly have predicted after going up 2-0? Splyce could not capitalize anywhere. Feels bad. Heretics, Envy. Now, my expectations were high for Heretics after a good performance at London, a top 8 finish. I believe actually it was a top 6 finish, which is impressive for Heretics. But going into it, we were talking about how, well, Fort Worth was rough because they were going through specialist change and weaponry swap changes. Well, who would have figured that Heretics, playing up against nothing but Spanish teams in Spain because they're not in the United States, would for some reason make another specialist and weaponry change? Sucre, who's been one of the better ARs in the game so far, would be swapping over and playing a SOG spot with Ruin, which took Methods off the SMG spot and put him to the AR spot. I don't understand this change. It must have been going well for them. Maybe Methods was not feeling like he was doing as much work up front with the SMG, but at the end of the day, could you really expect him to be a better AR than Sucre while he's figuring out the SMG? The answer today was definitively no, as it really wasn't that close of a set. 250 to 155 was the opening hard point. The Search and Destroy did look good for Heretics, who came out playing hot, but then a 3-0 and what was almost an incredible comeback on the final hard point. Played it on frequency. At one point in time, it was like 160 to 23. And it looked like it was only going to get worse from there. It was about 220 or so to 110. And Heretics would string together 3 straight points that made it respectable. A 250 to 213. But goodness, this is bad for multiple reasons. Envy, you cannot let Heretics come back almost down 160 points to finally put you within 30 or 40 points. You cannot let that happen. Definitely not the greatest of wins for Envy, but for Heretics, what are you doing making these swaps? I get that there's probably internal reasons, but I just don't understand them. After a good performance at London, you figure you just practice, you get a little bit better, you have better specialist usage, you have better score streak usage, you can kind of break through. Again, the games that they lost were relatively close. As I'm looking through here, there's a 201 to 250 hardpoint loss. There's a 5-6, 2-5-6 search and destroy losses. And then at Control, they were really good in Control, 4-2. Their 2 losses were 1-3. I don't understand this change. I don't get it. I don't like it. My thoughts for Heretics are going a little bit further down because, frankly, I just don't see this change going well for them until maybe next week. So for Heretics, a lot of issues for them. 3-1 the score, favoring Envy. eUnited Enigma 6. Now again, I had mentioned Enigma 6 playing up against Splyce. Yes, they lost, but they hung around and they looked pretty solid. If Splyce doesn't get score streaks in each of their 3 games, that could have been an extended series. Here against eUnited, it would be a very back and forth affair. eUnited coming out hot, a lot of expectations for them, would absolutely smash Enigma 6 in the first hardpoint, 250 to 146, but Enigma 6 would bounce right back and take the 6-2 on the Search and Destroy. Going into Control, it would be another flip-flop stomp, this time eUnited with the 3-1, and then we'd finally get a very back-and-forth battle. This was on Arsenal for the hard point, the second hard point. It looked like a deja vu of the Reciprocity and UYU game as Enigma 6 was putting together quite a little bit of a comeback, and they would be able to sneak away Arsenal on the second hill. Same situation, eUnited not being able to get into that gun battery testing area, and Enigma 6 would send us to 5, and you could kind of feel the energy in the air shifting, but you have to remember eUnited is an incredible search and destroy team, and you cannot figure that that 2-6 loss on Hacienda, which actually is their worst search and destroy map, would continue. They would go to Arsenal, a map that they were 5-1 on. They would stomp Enigma 6 6-1, and that would put the set in favor of eUnited. But Enigma 6 looked very good again in their wins. The Control was a little bit closer than I may have made out to be, but the hardpoint comeback was big. The Control was, again, a little bit close, and the fact that they're finding some success in Search and Destroy makes me feel a little bit better about this E6 squad. Let's take a look at Wednesday and give you our predictions. Elevate and Denial will be up first, followed by Heretics and Enigma 6. eUnited going up against Splyce, and 100 Thieves versus Team Envy. Let's start with Elevate going up against Denial. We'll break this one down a little bit more specifically for you. This Elevate team looked good, I would say, all the way throughout the entirety of the day today versus Splyce. Even in the games that they lost, they looked good. This very well could have been a 3-1 or maybe even a 3-0 for Elevate. This is a squad that went 5-2 in hardpoint at London, one of the better stats for their pool, but not only that, also in the entire tournament, they looked very good. The biggest question mark was what would they do in search and what would they do in control. This was a squad that was 0-4 in control and 1-4 in search. A couple of games did go to round 11 in their search and destroy that they lost. They did have 1-6-0 was their victory, and then same kind of conversation for the control. 2 of those games went to round 5. So all it would take would get them to clean up a little bit. For Denial, this is a team that looked pretty atrocious when it came down to their performance that we saw previously at London, but were able to smack around Envy a little bit, especially in the search and destroy department. That's the one area that they've been good at, and one that I'm a little bit worried about for this matchup. Personally, though, the hardpoint tilts vastly in favor of Elevate. Yes, Denial got better, but I think that way we saw Elevate play just yesterday versus Splyce, compared to how Denial played up against 100 Thieves, I think Elevate is the better team here in the respawn overall. I've got this one going 3-1 for Elevate over Denial, if not map 5, depending on what the map rotation looks like. It just kind of depends on that. But I've got this one going 3-1 personally for Elevate. I have no idea if they're the underdog or the favorite in the betting department, but that's what I've got going for you. Heretics versus Enigma 6. My biggest thing with this is the simple fact that Heretics just made role swaps, and I don't understand them. I don't really care for them, and they looked vastly weaker with the exception of the Search and Destroy on Gridlock, which, let's be honest, that's a map that Envy has typically not been super great at. They are 5-6. They're just okay. 3-5 is that situation for Heretics. Again, just okay. My biggest problem is the respawn. Enigma 6 has been looking pretty solid there. The 250-244 win versus eUnited was good. Again, they hung around versus Splyce in the hardpoint and the control, and keep in mind they were able to find themselves a pretty convincing win, the 6-2 against eUnited, and then a 4-6 loss to Splyce in the search and destroy department. So I don't have many things going well for Heretics unless they swap back to what the roles previously were, but I don't know if they're going to do that, in which case I can't see their respawn going all that well. I've got this one going 3-2 favoring Enigma 6. Going to eUnited and Splyce. Again, who knows which Splyce is going to show up. Beyond that, though, eUnited did not look like the second place team from London that we came to know and love during their run there. So is there a potential that Splyce could potentially take this game? I think yes. However, I'm not super confident in it simply because of how good at Search and Destroy eUnited is. Their control also looked much more polished versus Enigma 6 compared to what we saw from them at London, where they only went even 5-5 with a handful of 0-3 losses in that loss department. But I think the solace is the simple fact that Simp is insane and that flat out eUnited is going to be the better team on any given day of the week. I've got this one going eUnited's favor at a 3-1 scoreline. Just to give you some background, the last time these two teams played, it was a 3-1, and the wins were to both hard points for eUnited and the Search and Destroy to eUnited. They lost the control. That was way back in week number 4 overall. So again, it was a close set between both teams, but I don't see it being the case here again. And then to finish off the day, 100 Thieves going up against Team Envy, and flat out, how could you say anything about it? Yes, Team Envy looked better, but there's no way they're going to touch 100 Thieves. I've got this one also going a 3-1. Maybe there's a world where Envy gets on one of their favorite maps. Maybe they get a Gridlock Hardpoint, which is their best map by far. They're 8-3 there. They've been playing a lot of frequency and a lot of Arsenal and a lot of Hacienda lately, though. None of those things. Again, it's hard to find a stat line versus 100 Thieves because they were once the incredible team at Arsenal, but now they're incredible at Hacienda. They're just good everywhere. They haven't lost a hard point since they played up against Gen G at London, which obviously that's a solid team there. And then beyond that, if their search is cleaned up and they continue to do well in the control, I don't see a way that Envy is able to take down 100 Thieves. I've got that one going 3-1. Let's go ahead and take a look back, though, very quickly at what our divisional standings are after the 2 days of results. I forgot to bring that one up, as well as the rest of our week coming up. eUnited will actually technically be in the first place spot due to tiebreaker. Both teams are at 9-3 between them and 100 Thieves. Heretics will fall out of what has been a 3-way tie between these teams since week 4. They are 8-4 now. A 2-way tie in the 4th spot between Splyce and Envy, that favoring Splyce at the 7-6. And then a little bit of a switch up in the bottom. Elevate has risen to 4-8, just over Denial and Enigma 6, who's just sitting at 3-10. So those are all the things that are coming forward for you guys in the schedule. We'll be back hopefully with some betting odds. If you guys do have anything out there, if anyone is willing to screenshot all of the betting odds from a different website like Bet365, I don't know what's going on with mine, but if you want to do that, feel free to screenshot it and send me a Twitter DM. I'll be happy to take a look at it after the games tomorrow, so that way I can put up the lines for going into Thursday for you guys and give you better predictions. But until next time, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.